Hello friends, welcome to my tutorial on how to assemble my second ever fully printed figure of Darth Talon. In this tutorial I will walk you through the best practices to get the best possible outcome for connecting the figure completely together and assuring that none of the parts break during assembly. Even though I am using the Resin 1 Tough 74 version 2 resin, which I have found is absolutely perfect for 3D printed action figures, it still can break. So there's a very specific way. I've put multiple of these together, and I am going to walk you all through that right now. So let's get started. There are 35 pieces in all, including the lightsaber. And we will start with some of the basics to get you going. Okay, so one thing to be mindful of are the mirrored pieces. What I've done is on Zbrush, I've actually created this little logo to where it'll help differentiate which one is the right and which one is the left and which direction goes up. So as you can see here on the left, there's an R with an arrow facing up. So when I actually mirror it in Zbrush, there's your L with your arrow facing up as well. So that way, if your parts get mixed up, it should be pretty easy to differentiate which parts go as far as the elbows and knees and any other piece that may be mirrored as well. The parts will come in their own separate bags for each separate limb and torso. However, if they do get mixed up, hopefully that helps with what you need. Okay, and one thing also that I recommend is any joint that's going to be a socket joint like this, whether it be the thigh to the upper thigh or the bicep into the shoulder, I recommend using just a little bit of petroleum jelly, very, very small bit, just because it can get pretty tight in there even after it is assembled. So to avoid breakage, just that little bit of lubricant in there to avoid that friction works really well. If anybody has any other suggestions on a better lubricant to use, please leave the comments down below. All right, so recommended tools, hair dryer. I recommend in the process of putting this together, it's going to take some time to heating all this up, to give your hair dryer some breaks every now and then, not just to run it constantly for about 35 minutes or so, about the time it takes to fully assemble one of these. So give it breaks. You don't want that thing burning up in your hand, blowing circuits, things like that. So I also use a paintbrush, just an older one, to apply any of the petroleum jelly, Vaseline, whatever you want to call it, to the joints before I go ahead and pop those together. And then I also use a set of round nose jewelry pliers to hold my pieces in front of my hair dryer, because trust me, you don't want to put your fingers there. After a little while, it's going to burn the hell out of them. Not good. Please don't do that. Be safe while doing this. These can also be utilized to pop some of the joints together, specifically where the elbows and knees meet the knee joint and the elbow joint. Keeping in mind, when the material is hot, you can damage it, so you have to be very gentle when pushing those together. More often than not, you can press the pieces together yourself without using the pliers, but if you just can't get them to go, it's a great alternative as well. You may want to wear gloves as well, because when you heat those pieces up and you go to put them together, they are a little bit hot. I don't, I'm an idiot, but I really recommend that if you're going to be doing this, because those pieces can get hot and I don't want anybody to get burned while putting this figure together. Sweet. Okay. Another thing I want to mention is when heating up, you can overheat. So what I recommend is about 10 seconds with the hair dryer on most every piece except the hips, but we'll get to that. Because as you can see here, this is what happens when they overheat. They basically just start to crack. Pieces can disintegrate. And while this Tough 74 resin is the best I have found for figures, it can break, okay? It is great for what it is for these, the longevity of it after it's put together, but being overheated or trying to remove parts or separate parts without heat, it will break, okay? So be very, very careful with that And we'll walk through that process on how to not break your figure putting it together. Okay, one note also before we assemble, something that's very important, the supports from the 3D printing. Need to make sure we sand those down, get them out with a knife or anything like that, because any support that may have gotten into an interior joint can cause it to not want to go together properly and will cause major issues for you. So once again, just as you can just come in and go ahead and trim those little pieces out. And you can even, if you want to, you can proactively sand any parts of the figure that you may actually see some layers on, because it does happen with 3D printing. Let's go ahead and with a lighter sandpaper, obviously something that doesn't have a very high grit to it, you can just go through and refine some of the areas before you assemble. It's not totally necessary to do that pre-assembly. However, if you get that all done and once you get your figure together, it should go together a lot nicer and be pretty much ready to paint once assembled.